Gentlemen, let's continue with our next executive panel, and that will be one on corporate mobility. Trends in the compensation and benefits ecosystem are evolving in parallel with those in the corporate fleet and mobility world. Fundamentally, it's all about moving from fixed to flexible. And this transition is necessary but also complex, but not impossible. If done right, the benefits are many, but it's clear that corporate mobility needs to become better, easier, and more usable. May I welcome on stage Georges Gilquinet. He is the Belgian Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for Mobility in our federal government. Monsieur Gilquinet, bienvenue à Bruxelles. I also would like to welcome Karen van den Boom. She is SVP and CEO Benelux at Sixt. Karen, welcome. And our third executive, ladies and gentlemen, is Alain Visser. He is the CEO at Link & Co. Alain Visser, welcome as well. You can sit wherever you want. There are fresh glasses, bottles of water, so be relaxed, and we will start like we did it with our two previous panel discussions with a key figure shown on the screen. So we have the two screens in front of you and also in the back. So the figure is 30%, perhaps, and the topic is corporate mobility. So perhaps there is someone of you that has an idea what that figure could mean. Yes?
The part of production of CO2 by mobility.
No.
It's 30%.
Ah, okay. No, here it is.
It's COP 26.
Yes, indeed.
We have to
decrease.
Decrease, yes.
Exactly. No, here it is. We did a survey around smart mobility in April, May. And 30% of the fleet and mobility managers responded that they are even open to pay more for corporate mobility than they do today for the company car, which is a good sign, but that also means that 70% has not answered that, and so there is still an opportunity. So coming back to our panel discussion, I would like to start with Monsieur Gilquinet, the Belgian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Mobility. And let's start with Belgium. We are here in Belgium. Knowing that Belgian company car drivers will need to go zero emission in 2026 to benefit from maximum tax benefits and tax incentives. And Brussels is even planning to phase out ICE vehicles by 2035. The colleagues in Flanders have just announced that they would also like to ban ICE vehicles or the purchase of new ICE vehicles by 2029. And you still need to decide if that can come true, which will be interesting to answer as well. What initiatives are you going to take as the Minister for Mobility to make sure that the infrastructure is ready to accommodate those extra 100,000 of electric vehicles that we will see here in Belgium on the roads?
Thanks for the question. I have a question. Who is coming from Belgium here in the room? Yeah. Belgium is not an easy country to understand. It's a complicated country institutionally complicated country. Competences are shared between the federal state. I'm minister, deputy prime minister in the federal government, and with the regions. Sorry. I will use Dutch words. Sorry for that. But we are working together to decrease CO2 production by cars. And one of the solutions is electrification. It's not the only one, but it's one important, and we are working on it. We decided that all company cars have to be e-cars for 2030. And we try to forbid CO2 cars, not e-cars. And we have to show the way. But it's not only our responsibility, it is the European discussion. It is also a choice that car producers have to do. I was in Audi Brussels today, which is producing e-cars, the e-tron, but we have to make little ones e-cars, cheaper e-cars, shared e-cars, and it's the future. What we are doing as a government, we are trying to prepare the change. We installed tax deductibility for private charging station, and those are at the workplace, which they are accessible to workers. These terminals are essential for the future. We think that a lot of e-cars, e-company cars can be charged there, more than 90%. All regions in Belgium have confirmed their common goal of continuing to develop current and useful network for electric charging station. It's like each country you have to place more charging station. It's no problem for everyone which has an e-car. This evolution of mobility in Belgium is already bearing fruit, but we have to maintain our efforts to remain the leader in future mobility. Our region are working on it. But zero emission cars are only one part of the puzzle, one part of the solution. I advocate as Minister for Mobility a policy to develop active mode of travel such as walking and cycling and public transport. You saw a picture with a train. I'm responsible for the trains in Belgium. I want to facilitate the links between the different modes of transport to simplify combination with public transport as well as with mass solution, mobility as a service solution. And I think it's the future. We have to make the life easier for people, even without a car, even without a company car, even without a e-company car. And we have to work on it. And I'm very interesting to be there and to listen to your solution.
Okay, but it's good to hear that you are planning things. Of course, we also need that it's realistic. And some people here in the room that are governing Belgian companies will probably say, well, aren't we going too quickly with some things? Because infrastructure at the moment is so weak or low.
You must have a begin, and you must have a goal. And we show the goal. And we say that 5 years for the time of all company cars must be e-car. Thus, we can prepare ourselves, and we can make choice to be ready in 2030 to do so. The state have to invest it. It's the reason why we made the choice for tax deductibility But we have to show the way. And I think it's very important, this COP 26 at the moment, and we have to find solution. As I said, 30% of CO2 emission are provided, caused by mobility, and we have to produce less CO2 emission.
Okay, good. I would like to go to Mr. Alain Visser. If you listen to the Deputy Prime Minister, then at the moment he's saying we also need to look at how we can avoid even e-cars. Now, Link & Co, of course, is a mobility specialist with e-cars in configurations as leasing, rental, car subscription. What is your opinion about sustainable mobility for corporates?
Well, first of all, I think the minister is absolutely right when he says it's not just about the cars. The cars is one element of sustainability. I find it quite fascinating that in the last year, suddenly all car manufacturers claim to be sustainable, which is, of course, sorry for my English, bullshit. If your main target is to sell as many cars as possible of a product that on average is used for 4% of the time and stands idle for 96%, then even selling electric cars is not sustainable. So let's be very frank about this. The car industry is extremely non-sustainable, even if you would 100% sell electric cars. So I think that needs to be said, and that's why I totally agree. Yes, the cars should change in electric cars, but then those cars need to be much better utilized. It cannot be that we just fill the streets with cars, because the problem is not the quality of the cars. The quality of the mobility, that is the problem. And that generates the CO2 as well. So I think what we have tried to do, I've spent my life in this non-sustainable industry, and I'm now trying to change it a bit to say, okay, let's make, yes, electric cars, but let's use them better. And there's a business model for that as well. So I think it has a bit of a win-win. I have two sons, they're 22 and 26. When they ask me, what have you done your whole life? I have to say I've sold cars. It doesn't feel very good. So it can be, you can offer mobility, you can make a business and at the same time be sustainable. And I think that's what you need to achieve. I think it's very good to hear that there is, and indeed Belgium is a complicated case. I've lost what is the rules in Brussels and in Vlaanderen and in Wallonie. I've lost it. I haven't lived in Belgium for 25 years and I've totally lost the orientation of what is, where do I wear a mask and where do I not wear a mask. I've totally lost it. But I think it's good to see that there is a federal support for electromobility, but I think it's even better to say that it's more than just making cars electric, because that is not the only problem. I would even dare to say it's a smaller part of the problem.
Okay, thank you very much for that clear comment. Karen, what Mr. Visser was saying is that it's hugely important to utilize the mobility asset in a better way. Sixt, of course, has also different approaches for the customers. In the Netherlands, we know that it's already more advanced than Belgium and probably more advanced to many other countries in Europe. What is your vision about creating mobility utilization at such a level that it becomes also sustainable?
Yeah, I think it's learning by doing. Actually, you're right. The Netherlands is slightly a little bit more ahead when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to mobility and sustainability. And to add to something to the things that's been said by the two gentlemen is, first of all, the electrification is not a solution. And this is what we already see in cities like Amsterdam, where we have on average, I would say, roughly 10,000 charging stations. If we have, in let's say 5 years, a completely electric fleet, we have another problem, meaning that we simply do not have enough electricity. So what we are currently working on very fast and ramping up faster than in any of the other countries is to put more effort on providing flexible mobility. And that has less to do with infrastructure, that has more to do with co-partnering, teaming up with different flexible mobility solutions, like public transport, like micro-mobility, like subscription models, etc., etc. And combining those three angles together with the Dutch government, I have to say, because this is the missing link. If the Dutch government is not involved in pushing flexible mobility, it's going to be a very difficult game, i.e. parking permits, etc., etc. So this, I would say, is the solution combined with the electrification of the vehicles.
Okay, that's clear. Mr. Visser, what needs to be done? Because we know that people that now are driving a company car and that need to, or where the company is saying it's probably better that you now switch to mobility as a service. And often people see it as a sort of a downgrade of the comfort, the luxury, the individualism that they have within their car. Yes? What needs to be done to make mobility sexy enough to convince those people that today and tomorrow will need to switch their mindset to mobility solutions?
Well, I think that the concept of company car will soon be as old-fashioned as the concept of owning a car. It's only a matter of time, and you see the trend growing very quickly. And with all the negative things that COVID has generated, one of the few positive things is that people even more start questioning, do I need to own a car? Because when do I use it? Let me repeat, it's used 4% of the time. So I already, in my company, have people who turn down a company car. And we, of course, don't offer company cars. We offer mobility contracts. But there's people, the majority of people live in the city, Amsterdam, who say, I don't want a company car. Where would I park it? It costs me a fortune. So we need to understand that I think there's a growing generation where this old-fashioned belief of the car is a part of my priority, this macho symbol, and this is what it's fading away. Those same two sons that I have, 22 and 26, they don't understand that notice of it's a problem, a car. So I think you need to give an emotional and a tangible benefit to your employees, which in many cases is no longer a product, but is a service. And I think what you need to offer is mobility. It cannot be, just think of the simple fact that a company with a sales fleet, you have the executives coming in with their BMWs, and they park and they sit the whole day in the office and they go back at night, and then the sales reps during that time drive their other cars and visit the customers. How inefficient is that? That is not modern mobility. That is not sustainable. That needs to change totally. And I think the sexiness is not the fact of owning a product. The sexiness is that you have good mobility. And I think that just needs to go around and is part of what I think new mobility concepts should be all about. But car manufacturers, let's face it, despite saying we are sustainable, which they are not, despite saying we want to push sharing cars, which they of course do not, because the more you share cars, the less you sell cars. The fact that you want to promote is to offer mobility with sustainable products, and only that is a sustainable solution.
Okay. We'd like to go to the minister. If we need to offer comfortable and sexy mobility solutions, then that also needs to be integrated, work well, work seamlessly. You mentioned yourself that you also are responsible, for example, for public transport. Well, for many people, public transport is not as comfortable as the car, or is not at time like the car in the garage. So what are you going to do to improve the ease of use and the comfort of that public transport?
I will say that I totally agree with what's said by my neighbor here. Mobility is a freedom. It is my motto. We thought too long that the car was a freedom. A car is not a freedom. Car is the problem. And we have to give the same freedom for people without a car, and public transport are part of the solution. You say that public transport are not comfortable. Perhaps you don't use enough public transport. I do, as a minister. They are safe. They are very safer than a car. We have to improve them. It's very important, and I try to do so as a minister. But a train is a safer way to move. But we have to work with other middle of transport for the first kilometer, with a bike, with a bus, and you have to make it easier for people so that they are even more free with different middle of transport than with their car, because it's not a model of today that costs a lot of money. It's very difficult to park a car, and we have to make people free with shared cars, shared bikes, with public transport who are more efficient. We need as an authority to invest in the public transport. They have to be more comfortable. They are already secure, more secure than a car. In a train, you can read a book, open your computer, look to the nice view that you have, talk with your neighbor. You can sleep if you are tired, and it's very it's a way. It's very positive to move, but we have to make it easier. You can pay with one app for a bike that you hire than for a train, than for a bus, and more easy than today. And this is what we have to work on it with developing from the mobility as a service, the mass application, and we are working on it. We have to legislate as an authority. We are working on it. Europe help us, because Europe show us the way, and we have to improve that. And it's one of my goals before 24, because I'm minister from now to 24 of more.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Karin, you are working in an international environment. Now, of course, we have different countries, different cities, different players. People are different, preferences are different. Economical, political environment does change. What can you do as a company to support multinational companies with the integration of mobility, knowing that there are also parameters that can change, and that probably it's not so easy to install, let's say, one policy or one strategy across multiple countries when we talk about seamless mobility?
A couple of things, to be honest. I'm an idealist, first of all, and I honestly believe that, apart from the fact that you said already, the usage of the car of 94%, etc., is completely true. But we have to be really honest. Stepping over from a car ownership into public transport is, I would say, one step too fast. And we have to be honest, infrastructure is not there, it's not sufficient always, and it's not only the last mile solution. You also need to be somewhere where there's simply no public transport available. So if I would answer your question, it's not only us together with the multinationals. Government is essential. Players like Alain, Link & Co. are essential to basically come up with a solution. Together, we can basically use the use cases, talk to your clients, the end users. I no longer talk about corporate customers or corporate clients or your employees. I honestly believe that we make a decision from a user perspective, whether I'm Karen from Sixt or Karen, a mother of my dollar. So it's combined. So together with other mobility suppliers and together with the government, essential in order to facilitate the corporates who are sitting in front of me.
Okay, thank you. Alain, companies are also thinking about introducing the mobility budget for their employees, giving them a budget like they do now with a leased car, and then there are the mobility options. What are for you the conditions to make a mobility budget also truly applicable and successful?
Well, I think we've covered it, and it's been said. A car was and has been an instrument of freedom, and it's now a burden. 30% of city traffic in Europe is people looking for a parking spot. That's not freedom. So I think just the fact of offering mobility, for me, is the simple solution. I think we've covered it. It today isn't. So I think that the concept itself stands. You need to provide a mobility service to your employees, and offering a car has always been that solution, and that is no longer the case. Let's face it, the whole discussion about company car is translatable to the whole question of the future of the car industry. The car industry and the mobility industry has been more or less the same. It will change. It will change, and I've been saying this for years. If the car industry isn't careful, we're going to be a supplier to the mobility industry. That's what's going to happen. And I've said that so many times. The car industry needs to ask themselves, do you want to be Boeing or Lufthansa? And whatever they're saying, they all have chosen for being Boeing, which I think is a stupid decision. Because you don't say today I fly to Rome with a Boeing, you fly with Lufthansa. You don't say I go with the city with a Toyota Prius, you say I go with Uber. And that's how it's going to be in the future as well. It's going to be about mobility services. And I think the car industry today is selling cars, is trying to sell cars to the fleet owners of companies in order to get their volumes. But the solution for employees is not to get a car, is to get efficient mobility. And the whole thing is connected. And that needs to be, and it's easy to find solutions for that, but it's an industry that is filled with hypocrisy. All car manufacturers will say sharing is not working. Why? Because they don't want it to work. Mm-hmm. Of course sharing works. Of course it works. And I think our initial success is the evidence of that. I think people want to share cars. People are ready to share cars. If you would have said 20 years ago, there's going to be a company that helps you to share your house, you would have laughed. And now Airbnb is the most normal thing in the world. So why is sharing cars not possible? Of course it will happen. But the key drivers today, the OEMs, don't want it to happen because it stops them from selling cars. So mobility is the only simple answer.
That's a bold statement. Thank you. Going to the COP26, dear Minister, what do you expect from it?
A lot. And a lot of good decision. We need it. We see the negative effect of climate change on our society. In Belgium, during the summer, very heavy rains and a lot of people dead. The first time that we see in Belgium so evident consequences from climate change, climate warming. Thus we have to decide in the COP 26 in Glasgow. We have to take decision, option for the future, for our children. And as I said to begin, we have to diminish our CO2 emission, and mobility is part of the problem, and mobility is part of the solution.
It can also be, yes. It's also part of the solution or the opportunity that is lying on the table.
As Minister for Mobility in Belgium, I'm working on better trains. We try to have more trains for the industry, so that you have less trucks on the roads, less problem of security on the road, less CO2 emission, less problem of congestion of the road, and we have as industrial countries to show the way. We have to do our part because the countries in the south are suffering much more of than we are from climate change and climate warming.
Okay.
We have to take clear option like we do for e-cars, and e-cars are not the solution. It's part of the solution, and we have to avoid that country on the south make the same mistake that we made years ago. And we have to find a solution which will make the life better and the life possible on Earth for our children and great children.
Okay, good. Karin, a final question for you. You have quite some experience also in the service industry with Sixt, etc. What is your main tip to our fleet and mobility managers here in designing a mobility program that is also cost efficient and employee attractive?
Yeah, we see mobility budgets growing for a couple of years already faster than in the Netherlands. I think the first answer would be sure that you offer enough supply. I mean, again, it's difficult for people to stay away from their car, so offer different mobility solutions. We have examples where people use for a couple of months, during rainy months, let's put it this way, a subscription model or a rent-a-car. And for the rest, they use the electric bike, for example, or public transport. Car sharing is going through the roof. If you have the ability to include car sharing also for your corporates, do it, because we see the results in the Netherlands. It's moving fast, really fast. The adoption is huge. And I think, yeah, that's mainly the answer. Make sure that you have enough suppliers to maintain basically the demand.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for answering the questions, Karin van der Boom, Alain Visser, and Minister Georges Gilquinet. Thank you for your presence.